Prosecution team number is 7.
The defense's number is 11.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, prosecution 7, just the number 7?
Yes.
How about this? I'm going to preside over this. And if I miss something when we're done, please join in then and remind me of what we've skipped. I'm following the script here. And so it's really easy for everyone to interrupt each other, to talk over one another. And so I'm going to attempt to preside, and I'll let you follow along with me. We've got the trial. Do we have the trial rosters, Mr. Steiner and Mr. Kolkmeyer?
We do not have them, but all of the participants have their names beneath the screen, so that's how we fill in the score sheet.
Fantastic, thank you. So we've got the team codes, and then I need to confirm that if video recorders are present or being used, that both teams have approved the taping of the round. Is anyone aware of any recording other than what the high school mock trial may be doing in recording this? Hearing nothing, I need to inform all teams that, as well as gallery members in the bar, that the Colorado Bar Association may be taking photographs of the competition, even though we're proceeding virtually, and that might occur during this round, and that team participation in the state tournament grants automatic permission and the use of these photographs by the Colorado Bar Association. I also need to ask anyone in the gallery who is connected with teams not competing in this round, and that might be student members and coaches of other schools or of the same school but a different team, to leave the courtroom. Is there anyone not associated with either of these two teams, prosecution or defense? Hearing nothing, if any of you are present, I'm going to require you to be excused and leave the courtroom now. I do see that there are a couple exceptions. I'm going to remind you all that teams have no recesses, although there are some exceptions for emergencies such as health emergencies, and especially not between the end of witness examination and the beginning of closing arguments. I'll ask each scoring panelist, Mr. Kolkmeyer, you first, and then Mr. Steiner, if there is any reason to be biased in judging either team. Mr. Kolkmeyer, are you familiar with any of the participants, and are you aware of any conflicts that you might have in being a scoring panelist, sir?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have seen one of these teams in a previous round, but it's my understanding that is not a conflict, and I see no other conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Kolkmeyer. Mr. Steiner?
This is my first round grade, and none of the faces or names look familiar to me. I see no problem with proceeding.
All right. I should ask if there are any trial committee members. Well, that's just if there is a conflict. This also applies to me, and I also do not recognize any of the participants, and I have no reason to believe that I would be unable to preside over this matter. I need to remind both teams, prosecution and defense, and coaches that any disputes arising out of this competition must be reported in accordance with the competition rules. I need to also remind you that your compliance with time requirements will be considered in scoring individual performances. And I do see that we have at least two timekeepers I recognize now. Thank you. I need to confirm that there is no coach or team member other than a timekeeper seated in the jury box. I don't know how well that applies here, so we'll keep going. For the record, Mr. Kolkmeyer, Mr. Steiner are in the jury box alone. I need to ask each side to introduce participating team members, attorneys, and witnesses, as the prosecution will be presenting their case first. We'll start with the prosecution. Would you introduce your team members and witnesses, please?
My name is Peyton McQuistion. Today I will be giving the opening statement directing Detective Jordan Markowitz in crossing Flake Van Owen. May my co-counsels introduce themselves, followed by their witnesses?
Yes, please, Mr. Kolkmeyer, Mr. Steiner, to the extent you need to write this down, feel free to ask them to repeat or slow down. So feel free to just interject as you need to. Prosecution, you may continue introducing yourselves and your witnesses. Thank you.
My name is James Steele. I'm a prosecution attorney directing Alex Cifuentes, and I am also closing statement.
My name is Emma Espino, portraying the character of Alex Cifuentes.
I'm Sailor Earl, portraying Jordan Markowitz.
I'm Juliet Buckley, directing Kyle and crossing Avery Becker.
I am Taylor Gleim, and I am playing Kyle Kuzak.
That is all, Your Honor.
Thank you, prosecution. Defense, would you introduce your counsel and witnesses, please?
Yes, we will. Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Annalise Wampler, and I will be directing Avery Becker, crossing Kyle Kuzak, and giving the opening statement.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Ben Kirshner, and I will be directing Taylor Perkins in crossing Alex Cifuentes.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury, opposing counsel. I'm Libby Cruiser, and today I will be directing Blake Van Owen, crossing Jordan Markowitz, and giving a closing statement. Your Honor, may we introduce our witnesses?
Yes, please, do so.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Connor Badger. I'll be portraying the role of Professor Blake Van Owen.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury, opposing counsel. I am Sienna Fisher, and today I'll be portraying the role of Taylor Perkins.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Eliza Harper, and today I will be playing the role of Avery Becker.
Is that all of the participants from the defense team?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you both. Next, I am instructed to have you stand and be sworn in. We are going to dispense with the standing, and as other virtual hearings that are taking place in this courtroom, swearing-ins are happening while people are still seated. So that's how we'll proceed. I am going to invite team members first, as opposed to witnesses, gallery members, and scoring panelists. Team members first. Raise your right hand. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
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 You may put your hands down, although raise your hand if you were unable to answer in the affirmative. Thank you. Witnesses, if you would raise your hand now, please, your right hand, I'll swear you all in. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You may put your hands down. Keep your hand up if you were unable to answer in the affirmative. All right. Gallery members, do we have gallery members present?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm going to swear you in. Raise your right hand and let me know when you've done so.
We're ready.
Gallery members, including teachers and attorney coaches, family members, and friends, do you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round?
Yes, Your
Yes, Your
Honor.
Honor.
All right. You may put your hands down. And scoring panel is next. Mr. Steiner, Mr. Kolkmeyer. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may put your hands down. Everyone is sworn in, answered in the affirmative. And the court is ready to have the prosecution give their opening statement to the jury. And with that, prosecution, are there any pre-hearing issues before we start with the opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. We have a few preliminary matters to discuss. May we begin?
Please.
Your Honor, we request permission to share our screen when presenting an exhibit for admission into the record and constructively publish it to the jury.
Yes.
Your Honor, we request permission for team timekeepers to post time in the public chat.
I think that makes most sense. Yes, please do so.
Your Honor, we request that participants mute their microphones and videos except for when they are witnessing or directing, crossing or redirecting, or recrossing a witness. Videos.
I'll require that, and I think everyone has done a fantastic job with that so far.
That is all, Your Honor.
Counsel, one of the things I understood in publishing the exhibit, that was prior to admission so that the witness could see the exhibit. Is that what you were asking for?
Yes, Your Honor.
That makes sense. That's granted. Defense, do you have any pre-hearing issues that you need to address?
Yes, we do. Your Honor, we ask that the time be paused in case of technical difficulties until the difficulty is resolved.
We'll take that as let's keep our fingers crossed, figuratively, all right, and hope that doesn't happen. But if not, we'll make sure that it's fair for everyone. So granted. Anything else from the defense?
No, we don't have anything else.
All right. I think it's time for opening statements. Then I'd invite the prosecution to give your opening statement to our two-person jury.
Yes, Your Honor. May I begin?
Yes, please do so.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, opposing counsel, Your Honor, today we bring forth to you a case of murder. On March 6th, 2020, Colorado high school teacher and mock trial coach Mackenzie Brackman was killed in his private residence, having been stabbed in the back. Today, you will be given two stories, the first one being built upon a foundation of facts and logic presented by experts in their respective fields, and the testimony of a classmate of the accused. The second being a narrative spun by two teenagers and a paid expert witness in police activity. Today, me and my counsel will introduce to you three witnesses. Jordan Markowitz, who investigated this case. Jordan is a homicide detective with specialized training in cell phone technology in the field, which provides a basis for this case, an expert in their field. You will hear a testimony from Kyle Kuzak, a Colorado Bureau of Investigation certified crime scene investigator with nearly 2 decades experience investigating crime scenes, including those involved with both burglary and murder. Kyle also worked directly on this case. And Alex Cifuentes, a former classmate of Avery Becker with close ties to the Colorado High School mock trial team and to coach Mackenzie Brackman. On the flip side of the coin, you are met with two teenagers and a single expert paid to testify on the side of the defense. You will meet Avery Becker, accused of murdering Mackenzie Brackman, an impulsive and emotional teenager who acted out of anger. Taylor Perkins, fresh out of high school and the best friend of Avery Becker. Blake Van Owen, an arrogant professor and private investigator. After having left the Aurora Police Department after being sued by a young woman of color that they injured in the field. Now I ask that all of you listen to both sides of this case and come to your decision. A decision that I ask you don't take lightly. If you follow the logic, I am sure you will find yourself agreeing with my counsel and our case. That is all.
Thank you. Opening statement for defense, please, if any.
Yes, okay. Atrocious, assumed, accused. Your Honor, members of the jury, this is a case that started with an atrocious investigation by the police that led to a number of assumptions and the wrong accusal of my client, Avery Becker. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Annalise Wampler, and I am here today with my co-counsel defending Miss Becker, who's been wrongly accused of burglary and murder. Atrocious. You are going to hear the prosecution say that, or you are going to hear that the prosecution's investigation was rushed and incomplete. Expert witness Blake Van Owen will explain all the deficiencies in the rushed and incomplete investigation, including the police's failure to fully investigate the alternative suspects and to consider Avery Becker's alibi. Assumed. The police made a number of erroneous assumptions in this case, as will be detailed by their own witnesses. You have heard the prosecution say that Avery Becker murdered Mackenzie Brackman, yet their main evidence comes from screenshots of a text conversation that was never verified and allegations that Miss Becker and her mock trial coach didn't always get along. The prosecution's own witnesses will reveal the number of erroneous assumptions in this case. Detective Jordan Markowitz will testify that they heard about one conversation via text message and disregarded 2 other suspects. Detective Markowitz will also have to admit that they used incomplete cell phone records. Their own crime scene investigator, Kyle Kuzak, will testify that he found no DNA or fingerprints belonging to my client on the scene of the crime. That they identified 2 other suspects, the most likely suspect being another Colorado high school student named Blair Rowland, who had an even greater motive to harm the victim. You will also hear from prosecution witness Alex Cifuentes, a high school student who always wanted the role that Avery Becker had and who never actually provided hers or her phone to the police. In the defense case, you will hear from Professor Blake Van Owen. Professor Blake Van Owen will point out the many holes in the prosecution's investigation. Next, you will hear from Miss Becker's best friend, Taylor Perkins. Taylor Perkins will tell you that although Avery Becker and her coach didn't always get along, that Avery would never murder her coach. Taylor Perkins will also verify Avery Becker's alibi. Finally, you will hear from the defendant herself, Miss Avery Becker, who will acknowledge her disagreements with the victim and who accepts full responsibility for her mistakes. We'll also hear about her missing cell phone and her alibi for the time of the murder. Assumed, or accused. The prosecution has wrongly accused my client of murder. Atrocious, assumed, accused. I am confident that at the end of this case, we'll find that the prosecution has not met its burden of establishing that Miss Becker committed murder in the first degree or that she committed second-degree burglary beyond a reasonable doubt. At the conclusion of this case, we ask you to find Miss Becker not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel, for opening statements. The court is ready for the prosecution to begin presenting their case in chief. Prosecution, who would you be calling as your first witness?
I call Detective Jordan Markowitz to the stand.
Detective, I'm going to swear you in. Detective, if you'd raise your right hand, I will swear you in. Do you swear or affirm, subject to penalty of law, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Detective, do you, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please say your full name and spell your last name, and then, counsel, you may proceed.
Sailor Rule, SAILORRULE.
Thank you. Counsel, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Detective Markowitz.
Good afternoon.
So, what is your current career?
I'm a homicide detective with the Denver Police Department.
And how long have you been with the Denver Police Department?
I started my career with Denver Police Department 13 years ago, but I've been a detective for 7.
What are your areas of expertise?
I have specialized training with cell phones and forensic data recovery certification.
And what did you have to do to earn those certifications?
I got a 3-day training course and I had to pass a test.
Describe how you use that training as an expert.
I find types of records that can be obtained and how to use forensic software to download that information from a cell phone and to understand these records from the cell tower data.
I would like to move to enter Jordan Markowitz as an expert homicide detective with specialization in cell phones and forensic data recovery.
Does defense have any objection of qualifying this witness as such an expert?
Yes, Your Honor. May I give a brief voir dire?
You may voir dire the proposed expert. Yes.
Good afternoon, Detective Jordan Markowitz. Your specialized training and experience is with cell phones, correct?
Correct.
You are trained in using the Celebrate system to download information from a cell phone?
Yes.
But you didn't use the Celebrate system in this case, did you?
Correct.
You have downloaded the contents of literally hundreds of cell phones, but you didn't actually download any cell phone data in this case.
Correct.
Objection, relevance. How is this relevant to entering Jordan Markowitz as a detective expert?
I'll sustain the objection. If you have some questions, defense counsel, about the qualifications of whether or not this witness is received as an expert, I'll let you voir dire now. The questions you've asked so far are good questions, but for cross-examination, not voir dire. Do you have any questions about the qualification of this witness?
The questions that I was asking were going to prove the lack of use of the expertise in this case.
Your Honor,
That would be a cross-examination question. Defense counsel, do you have any questions about this witness's expertise?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Without further objection, or counsel, do you have objection to qualification of this witness as an expert as tendered?
No.
Without objection and consistent with Rule 702, this witness is so qualified. Prosecution may continue with direct examination.
How are you related to this case?
I was assigned the investigation of the case of Mackenzie Brackman, who is a criminal defense lawyer who died.
Can you give a brief description of the crime scene?
When I got there, I took many observations. I noticed a Ring doorbell and a camera pointed at the south side of the home. Brackman was deceased inside of the front door in a pool of blood with a knife beside the body. Their shirt was soaked in blood.
Did the Ring doorbell serve any importance to this case?
Yes, we have many videos. We have multiple videos of the suspect running into the house and out of the house.
And were you able to recover anything else from the Ring doorbell?
We found that the suspect looked like they knew where they were trying to go by the way that they opened the back door so effortlessly, like they knew exactly what they were trying to do.
Your Honor, may I have permission to briefly confer with my co-counsel?
Sure thing. Sometimes the best time in court is silence. Feel free.
And as a detective with specialization in cell phones, were you able to do anything with Brackman's phone?
Yes, I found it at the crime scene, and I found the footage from the Ring doorbells.
Did you find anything with maybe the text messages?
Yes, I found information about the a club that Brackman ran called Moot Court or Mock Trial. Sorry.
And did you reach out to the club?
Yes, I did. I reached out and got names of the students that were involved in it, which included Alex Fuentes and other students in the club.
And you mentioned Alex Fuentes specifically. Did you get any valuable information from them?
Yes, I spoke with him and when I spoke with him, he had forgotten his phone, and I had him text me screenshots of text messages between him and him and Avery Becker, and they had discussed many concerning things.
Did you investigate Becker further?
Yes, I did. The text messages that I saw contained evidence of Becker wanting to go, quote, trash the home of Brackman.
So did you try to get an interview with Becker?
I did, and he had forgotten his cell phone at home, so that's why I had to use screenshots that they used.
Becker forgot his cell phone at home?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anthony Sawagan, please report to the counseling center, please. Anthony Sawagan, please report to the counseling center. Thank you.
Could you please ask the question again?
And did you investigate Avery Becker further?
Yes, I did. I found that he was in the group with them for Moot Court and had gotten kicked out of it after vandalizing Brackman's vehicle.
All right. And did you try to get an interview with Becker?
Yes, I did, and he had already gotten a lawyer.
All right. Can you explain how your cell phone training came into play during this case?
Yes. Alex Fuentes had been texting Avery Becker repeatedly on the day of the murder, and so the cell phone towers around him were picking up that signal. So as Avery went from his house to Brackman's house, there was a clear trail of where he went due to those text messages and calls being transmitted.
Permission to share my screen and show the witness and the jury what has been marked as Exhibit 15?
Exhibit 15, you may publish that for purposes of establishing foundation for admission. Yes.
Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is showing the cell towers that picked up the text messages and calls that were between Alex Fuentes and Avery Becker on the day of the murder.
All right. Permission to publish Exhibit 15 to the jury and enter it into evidence?
Is there any objection first from the defense for the admission of Exhibit 15?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 15 is admitted without objection, and the prosecution may publish it for the jury.
Okay. How is this exhibit relevant to your case?
It shows Avery Becker on his way to Brackman's house through the cell phone towers.
So, as an expert detective, what conclusion could you reasonably make with this information?
Avery Becker went from his home and walked or got transported from his home to Mr. Brackman's home.
And given things that you saw at the crime scene, what conclusion could you make about this case in general, in your expert opinion?
Overall,
Yes.
I can make the conclusion that it was a robbery gone wrong, and saying that the text messages between the two of them talked about how he was going to go trash Brackman's home. I think that he was planning on going to trash Brackman's home, but it went wrong fast, and it ended up as a murder, sadly.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Defense, do you have cross-examination for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
When you arrived, you came to find that the victim was face down near the front entrance of the residence, correct?
Objection. Argumentative question. That question asks the witness to accept the examiner's summary rather than a fact.
I'll overrule the objection. This is cross-examination, and I think it's an appropriate question. I appreciate the objection, but I'll overrule it. Counsel for defense, you can continue with your cross-examination.
You believe that the victim most likely had fallen to the ground while trying to leave the residence, correct?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Defense, do you want to respond?
Yes, due to the objection of the last question, I never got a response.
I agree. I'll overrule the objection. Counsel, ask the question one more time. I'll permit you to do that so that the witness can answer.
Okay. You believe that the victim most likely had fallen to the ground while trying to leave the residence, correct?
Correct.
Photographs were taken of the crime scene, correct?
Correct.
Some of the photos of the crime scene were corrupted, and thus the jury cannot see all of the photos that had been taken of the crime scene, correct?
Correct.
Among the missing photographs were photos of the cast-off blood splatter.
Correct.
Based on the crime scene, you were able to reconstruct what you believe to be the chain of events, right?
Yes.
And you believe that the victim caught someone breaking into the home?
Yes.
Objection. Asked and answered. This question was already asked and answered during examination.
It may have, but if it has, I think it's helpful for me and therefore the jury to make sure with this context what the answer was. And so I'm going to overrule the objection. But I appreciate the objection. Defense counsel, you may continue.
You believe that the victim confronted the intruder with a knife.
Correct.
And there was no DNA evidence at the scene, correct?
Correct.
The intruder was long gone by the time you arrived on the scene, correct?
Correct.
The Ring cameras, though, caught the intruder on film, correct?
Yes.
Based on the clothing and mask worn by the intruder, you cannot positively identify the intruder, right?
Yes.
Did you recognize the victim?
I didn't immediately, but as soon as I saw who it was, I knew exactly who it was.
Based on you knew him as a criminal defense attorney, correct?
Yes.
Objection. Relevance. How is this relevant to the case at hand?
Defense counsel, do you wish to respond to that?
I'm asking these questions to end up showing a possible idea or lead that the detective could have had on the investigation.
Prosecution, do you wish to reply to that?
Your Honor, I still don't see why Detective Markowitz's relationship to the victim would be relevant in these circumstances.
All right. I'll find that it goes towards identification, which is something particularly at issue in this, and so I'll overrule the objection. Counsel, I'm not sure if you got an answer for your question. If not, you can re-ask. Otherwise, go to your next question.
Okay. You knew him as a criminal defense attorney, correct?
Correct.
And based on his work as a criminal defense attorney, you consider that the intruder could have been a disgruntled ex-client?
Objection, speculation. I believe that this question is asking the witness to speculate or guess.
Well, I think it's asking if that was considered, so I'll overrule the objection. You can get an answer of your question, defense counsel.
Would you like for me to restate the question?
Yes, please.
Based on his work as a criminal defense attorney, you consider that the intruder could have been a disgruntled ex-client?
Possibly.
In this case, did you identify a suspect by the name of Blair Rowlands?
No.
Did you know?
Objection, relevance. Your Honor, I don't see how other suspects would be relevant in the case of Avery Becker.
May I respond?
You may, please.
I'm trying to introduce a possible alternative witness that it's possible the prosecution never looked into.
Your Honor, Blair Rowlands
go ahead.
is
Yes.
not a witness in this case.
Say that again, prosecution?
Blair is not a witness and is not present in the courtroom. Therefore, I struggle to see the relevance of this in this court case.
All right. If this were a case before me, a homicide case, we would have had a hearing ahead of time to determine whether or not I'd permit you to present to the jury if alt suspect would be admissible before the jury. Not knowing quite sure, counsel, I appreciate your objection. I think it's well-founded. Although because of how we're proceeding for this mock trial, I'm going to overrule the objection, but only because of that. I think the objection is very good, but still overruled. Defense counsel, you can ask that question.
Okay. Would you like for me to restate the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. Did you know that Blair Rowlands is the child of a disgruntled ex-client?
No.
Did you know that Blair Rowlands has as well been missing since the murder?
No.
You also then, shortly after figuring out who the victim was, you realized that the victim was a coach of a mock trial team at Colorado High School.
Yes.
Objection, asked and answered. I believe that the answer to that question was answered in previous cross questions.
May I respond?
Please.
I, up to this point, have not asked any questions regarding the possible lead of it being somebody from the mock trial team.
Your Honor, I
I'm not
understand that, but
Counsel,
the witness already mentioned that.
Here's what I'll do. I can't remember, and if I can't remember, I'm thinking there's a chance the jury can't either, and so I'm going to permit the question. All right, for the benefit of the jury, you can re-ask it if you've asked it already. Go ahead.
Okay. You also realized that the victim was a coach of a mock trial team at Colorado High School, correct?
Yes.
And the first person that you reached out to was a mock trial student named Alex Fuentes?
Correct.
Now, Alex Fuentes alleged that Avery Becker had sent him text messages about a plan to trash the victim's home, correct?
Correct.
Objection, argumentative question. This question asks the witness to accept the examiner's summary rather than the facts in their answer.
Overruled. Counsel, you can continue.
You had Alex Fuentes come into the station for an interview, correct?
Yes, correct.
But Alex didn't bring his phone, did he?
Correct.
And you were surprised after your conversation that Alex Fuentes did not bring his phone, since it was the only time that you have encountered a teenager who did not have their cell phone with them?
Correct.
And after your meeting, you only required screenshots of the text messages, correct?
Correct.
You did not require Alex Fuentes to bring you the cell phone?
Correct.
So you conducted no further investigation of those text messages?
Correct.
If you had the cell phone, you could have used the Cellubrite system to authenticate those text messages, correct?
Correct.
And you had the expertise to do that?
Correct.
You are aware that a person can view tamper with iPhone screenshots, correct?
Can you repeat the question? It cut out.
Yes. You are aware that a person can tamper with iPhone screenshots.
I am unaware.
As someone who has specialized training with cell phones, you still never considered further investigating these text messages, even though they so-called gave you your biggest break in the case.
Correct.
And after what you deemed as the biggest break in the case, you took no action to further investigate any other suspects, correct?
Correct.
You were informed that Avery Becker lost her phone on March 5th, 2020, right?
I was.
Yet, when you obtained a court order to obtain the account records for her phone, you only obtained the records for the March 6th, 2020, the day of the murder, correct?
Yes.
So you had the ability to track where Avery Becker's phone had been on the day that it went missing, and you failed to investigate it?
Yes.
Have you located her phone since the murder?
I don't recall.
Moving on. You obtained CDRs or call detail records, correct?
Yes. Correct.
And those records can identify the cell tower with which the cell phone was communicating, but it does not give you GPS coordinates.
Objection, relevance. How is this relevance to the case of Avery Becker?
May I respond, Your Honor?
Please.
This question is trying to show that there in the investigation of the prosecution was a lack of GPS and evidence to where Avery Becker was on the day of the murder.
All right. I'll overrule the objection. You're permitted to ask the question.
Those records can identify the cell tower with which the cell phone was communicating, but it does not give you GPS coordinates of the phone, correct?
That is correct, but the number of text messages and calls between the cell phone proved that it must have been those cell towers that it was picking up.
Isn't it true that not all phones connect to the tower located closest to it?
Correct.
Thus, Avery Becker's phone could have connected to a tower that was further away than the tower it was closest to?
Correct.
Through the records that you obtained, you were also able to tell that on the day of the murder that Avery Becker's phone received phone calls and text messages, correct?
Correct.
But you were also able to determine that Avery Becker's phone did not answer the calls or respond to the text messages it received?
That is correct.
Meaning that there was most likely no connection ever made between the two phones.
Did you say there's no connection made between them?
Yes, the question was meaning that there was most likely no connection ever made between the two phones.
The cell towers actually pick up no matter if they answer or not, it would still pick up the connection even if they weren't responded to.
But let me restate my question. There was no direct contact between Taylor Perkins and Avery Becker's phones.
Correct.
So isn't it possible that on March 6th, Taylor Perkins and Avery Becker could have been trying to get a hold of Becker's lost phone?
Correct.
And the CDR records do not contain the content of a call or text message, correct?
Correct. It just tells you if it was a call or a text and whether it was answered or not.
And finally, the only evidence that you have to suggest that Avery Becker was near the victim's house on the day of the murder is based on the CDR data, correct?
Incorrect. There's evidence that it's been proven that Becker vandalized a car, and while that doesn't seem as big as a murder, it can turn into it because if he ruined a car that was expensive as it was, then he could trash a home, and that was a robbery gone bad. So it turned into a murder. He wasn't trying to murder him. It was a robbery that turned into a murder.
But in regards to the location and the connections of the phone on the day of the murder, the only evidence that you have is the CDR data, correct?
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Prosecution redirect, if any?
Yes, Your Honor. How long have you been a detective again?
I've been a detective for 13 years.
And you are an expert in the field of forensic cell phone data recovery, correct?
Yes,
And you led a thorough investigation?
correct.
Your Honor, no further questions.
All right, defense, I think there's an option for recross, if any. Do you have any recross?
No, Your Honor.
All right, that'll conclude the testimony from this witness. Thank you. And prosecution, who would you like to call as your next witness?
I'd like to call Kyle Kuzak to the stand, please.
All right, Kyle Kuzak, I'll have you raise your right hand and I will swear you in. Do you swear or affirm, subject to penalty of law, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you're under oath. Would you please say your full name and spell your last name, witness?
My name is, you want my real name or my witness's name?
That's a fantastic question. I appreciate that. Your witness name.
Okay. My name is Kyle Kuzak, spelled K-U-Z-A-K.
All right. And with that, you're under oath, and prosecution, you may ask questions of your witness.
Your Honor, I'm sorry for the interruption, but I would just like to ask the timekeeper for the time for the cross because I think we've been getting different times.
Okay, so we need both timekeepers with this witness to publish the time remaining, correct?
Yes, for the cross-examinations.
All right, and let's go ahead and do it for all portions of the witness's testimony. Thank you for that. Prosecution, you may proceed with your first question.
Great. Miss Kuzak, what do you currently do?
I am a Colorado Bureau Investigation Certified Crime Scene Reconstruction Investigator, also known as CSR.
Your Honor, I move to enter Kyle Kuzak as a Colorado Bureau of Investigation Certified Crime Scene Reconstruction Investigator.
All right. Defense counsel, do you have any objection?
Yes, I ask to conduct a brief voir dire.
You may.
You're not a police officer? I'm sorry.
I wasn't able to hear the response. Go ahead, witness, answer the question.
I am not a police officer.
Okay.
You're a civilian employee?
Yes.
You've only spent 3 years at the Denver Police Department?
Yes. Objection. What is the relevance?
I'm going to overrule the objection. I think this goes to expertise, or more specifically, lack thereof, and so I'll permit it. Defense, you may continue with your voir dire of this witness.
You have provided no information about your education, correct?
Yes.
Or your training?
Yes.
Or any certifications?
Yes.
Or any past experiences testifying as an expert?
Yes.
At this time, we object to the admission of Kyle Kuzak as an expert, since the prosecution has failed to introduce Ms. Kuzak's expertise.
Defense, here's what I'm going to do. Rather than grant that request on insufficient foundation, I'm going to invite the prosecution. Are there any more questions that you have about this witness's training, education, if they've testified before in a jury trial? I'm going to invite you to ask any of those questions right now.
Okay. Ms. Kuzak, do you have any experience, and if you do, how long?
I have 19 years of experience.
Okay, and what do you specialize in?
Investigating 3 complex crime scenes, including home invasions, burglary, and other property crimes, 4 homicides, domestic violence, fatal accidents, and armed robberies.
Okay. Your Honor, those were my last questions about
their experience.
Defense, do you maintain your objection?
Yes, we maintain our objection.
All right. With those additional questions, I'm going to permit this witness to be so qualified over the objection. I think the original objection, at least, was very on point. This witness is so qualified as an expert, as crime scene reconstructionist, and I believe it's Ms. Buckley. You may continue with your questions of your now expert witness.
Okay. Ms. Kuzak, did you ever visit the crime scene?
Yes, I did.
And when was that?
It was after it was processed by the other members of the crime lab.
Can you describe what you did at this particular crime scene?
I reviewed the crime scene, so all the police reports, all photographs, and the 4 ring security videos.
What is the first thing you do in CSR?
Well, the essence of CSR works involve identification of event segments and their sequencing when possible.
And now, what was your method during this case?
I have a 7-step methodology for event analysis, including flowcharts for charting sequences and worksheets applying for scientific method and difficult sequences.
Okay. Now, can you walk us through some of the key principles that guide your work in this case?
The 5 parts I do are recognition, documentation, collection of evidence, evaluation of evidence, hypothesis, and testing reconstruction. I assume that every case is going to go to trial.
Okay. Your Honor, permission to share my screen and share what has been marked as Exhibit 17?
You may do that.
Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And what is it?
It's a witness tracking spreadsheet I made.
And how does it relate to the case?
It relates to the case because it gives us key points of information of the witnesses and suspects.
Thank you. Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 17 and constructively publish it to the jury.
Let's see if there's any objection. Defense, is there objection to admission of Exhibit 17?
No.
With no objection, 17 is admitted, and you may publish it to the jury.
Sorry. Okay. Now, can you explain to us the first step in this particular investigation?
So first I use a witness tracking spreadsheet to summarize key point information of witnesses and suspects. This is a document linking evidence ID numbers from the scene to department evidence numbers and referenced reports.
And what were the next steps in your investigation?
I drew a flowchart and timeline initially to maintain a macro perspective of information in this case and to show key physical and chronological relationships. My second step is to prepare materials for formal analysis.
Did you do anything else in your steps?
In these steps, I expanded the organization framework for information, evidence, and images to document evidently relationships, lab submissions, and analysis.
Okay. And to prepare your analysis, were you able to see all images available?
Yes, and when the images are the focus in depth analysis, I find separate spreadsheets are helpful.
Can you explain what you saw in the photographs of this case?
The photographs in this case show small droplets of blood between the kitchen and the front door where a knife and large pool of blood are located. They also showed blood cast off the wall and the ceiling near the front door.
Okay. Now what exactly did you do with all of these photographs?
I organized all the photographs of the crime scene into a spreadsheet that revealed a clear chronology indicating the victim was stabbed near the kitchen, proceeded towards the front door, pulled the knife out, and dropped it.
Now do you know what happened to the digital file of the photographs?
They were partially corrupted and the photographs of blood droplets and cast off were lost at some point after my review, long after my review.
Okay, now what was your fourth step?
Once the evidence was organized, I formally conducted a hypothesis and came up with an analysis.
During this process, was there anything else you did?
I made observations of evidentiary relationships during the organization process.
Okay. What was the very last thing you did during this process?
Well, the final steps of the 5-step CSR case management process involved CSR initial report, preparation, peer review, and final reconstruction report.
Great. Your Honor, permission to share my screen and share what has been marked as Exhibit 10?
So you want to submit it so that your witness can see it?
Yes.
You may do that. I understand you're not yet, or at least not yet, moving for admission of Exhibit 10, but you can show the witness that exhibit.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 10 and constructively publish it to the jury.
Let's see, defense, do you have any objection to this Exhibit 10, which for the record is a video recording?
No, we do not.
With no objection, Exhibit 10 is then admitted, and so you may publish it to the jury if you wish.
Okay. Now, after you finished the 5-step process, what did you conclude?
Well, after the evidence and my process, I've concluded that during the afternoon of March 6, 2020, a perpetrator matching the general height and build of the defendant approached the victim's residence, initially stepping on the front porch and checking the front door as captured by the Ring door camera, and then proceeding to the south side of the residence and out of the camera's range.
Okay. Your Honor, permission to share my screen and share what has been marked as Exhibit 18 to the witness?
Your Honor, I believe you are muted.
Thank you for that. My apologies. You may do that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And you were waiting so patiently for my response and permission.
1 second, I'm sorry. Okay. Do you recognize these?
Yes.
And what are they?
They are the scuff marks on the floor.
Okay. Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 18 and constructively publish it to the jury.
Any objection to admitting Exhibit 18?
No.
18 without objection is admitted. You can publish it to the jury if you like.
Um, 1 minute. Your Honor, permission to share my screen and show what has been marked as Exhibit 12?
You may.
Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 12 and constructively publish it to the jury.
Any objection to admission of Exhibit 12?
There'll be no objections.
With no objection, 12 is admitted.
Okay. Now, thank you. What is your final conclusion as an expert?
In the end, this was a clearly planned burglary gone bad. The intruder had knowledge of the victim's property and likely chose a time of day when the victim's pattern would have placed him outside the home. But the victim was persistent and attended and alerted to the intruder's presence at the back of the home before the intruder entered.
Okay.
Are those all of your questions, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, no further questions.
All right. Cross-examination, defense counsel?
Yes. Permission to conduct a brief cross-examination?
Feel free, yes.
Ms. Kuzak, you relied on photographs of the crime scene that were lost or corrupted after your review.
Yes.
These included images of blood drops and cast of blood on the wall and ceiling, correct?
Yes.
So important evidence has been lost for the prosecution?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So important evidence has been lost by the prosecution?
Yes.
Did you recover any fingerprints or DNA at the crime scene?
No.
All the fingerprints and DNA belong to the victim, right?
Yes.
Isn't it also true that you were unable to recreate all event segments?
Yes.
And you weren't able to place all the evidence?
Yes.
Isn't it also true that you would have preferred more physical evidence at this case?
Yes.
During this case, you identified a number of possible suspects, right?
Yes.
You identified Alex Cifuentes
Yes.
and Blair Rowlands.
Yes.
Are you aware that Alex and Blair are friends?
Yes.
So you were aware that they knew each other?
Yes.
The victim, Mackenzie Brackman, defended Blair Rowlands' father, Jonathan Rowlands, in a criminal case in which he was sent to jail. You know this, right?
I do not
Objection, relevance. What does this have to do with?
Defense counsel, what's the relevance?
The relevance of this question is to prove why Blair Rowlands wasn't investigated when he should have been investigated.
All right. I'll overrule the objection. The witness can answer if you remember it. Otherwise, defense counsel, repeat the question.
Do you recall that the victim, Mackenzie Brackman, defended Blair Rowlands' father, Jonathan Rowlands, in a criminal case in which he was lost and sentenced to jail?
Yes.
The victim had been threatened by Mr. Rowlands due to losing the case, right?
I do not recall.
There is an audio recording of Jonathan Rowlands saying, "I'll get you, Brackman, if it's the last thing I do." Do you recall this audio recording?
Yes.
Also, the police were never able to locate Blair Rowlands, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I have a few more questions. You were also aware of Avery Becker's alibi and that Avery Becker was with Taylor Perkins on the day of the murder.
Yes.
And you're also aware that Taylor Perkins acknowledged this alibi and said it was true.
Yes.
And you're also aware that Avery Becker expressed remorse for what she did to Brackman.
Yes.
That is all the questions I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, defense counsel. Prosecution, do you have any redirect of this witness?
Your Honor, permission to confer with co-counsel.
You may.
May there be a brief time check on cross?
Your cross was 3 minutes and 30 seconds according to my clock, given that we're getting inconsistent clock calculations on the chat.
Okay, Your Honor, permission to proceed.
Yes, redirect. Go ahead.
Ms. Kuzak, can you tell me what your expertise is in again?
My expertise is in crime scene reconstruction. Sorry. It is in crime scene reconstruction, home invasions, burglaries, and other property crimes.
Okay, and again, how much experience do you have?
19 years.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Defense, any recross?
There will be no recross at this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. We'll excuse this witness with thanks, and I'll hear from the prosecution's next witness. Prosecution, who would you like to call?
Your Honor, I would like to call Alex Cifuentes to the stand.
Alex Cifuentes, I'll have you raise your right hand and swear you in. Do you swear or affirm, subject to penalty of law, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
Please say your full name, spell your last name,
That would be
your witness name.
Yes, that would be Alex Cifuentes, Sifuentees.
Thank you. Prosecution counsel, you may proceed with your first question.
Thank you, Your Honor. What high school did you go to?
I went to and I still go to Colorado High School.
And were you on the mock trial team?
Yes, I was.
Was the defendant also on the mock trial team?
Yes, she was.
What was the relationship like between Coach Brackman and Avery?
Oh, wow. They were always at each other, always. And you really couldn't get between them, from Avery's lack of commitment to it just always getting over Mr. Brackman's head. They were always at each other.
So Avery was not an active student?
Absolutely not. She won the awards, but she didn't do any work for them.
I see. And what's your relationship like with the defendant?
We're actually pretty good friends. The competition between us really causes us to push each other to do better, which is why I think I do so well during mock trial. But there's also a level of trust between us, which I really appreciate.
I see. And do you have any insight to the occurrence when the defendant vandalized Coach Brackman's car?
Yes, I do. Beforehand, Mr. Brackman was getting mad at Avery for her lack of participation.
I see. And being so close with Avery and always being there and observing, why do you think Miss Becker would vandalize Coach Brackman's car?
Well, beforehand.
Your Honor, Alex Cifuentes has firsthand knowledge and has been on the mock trial team and has seen lots of occurrences and has just known.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Was there an objection? I was unable to hear what the objection was.
Yes, Your Honor, speculation.
I'm sorry, I still can't hear you, defense counsel.
Yes, Your Honor, speculation.
There, I was able to hear it. Prosecution response?
Your Honor, Ms. Cifuentes has had firsthand knowledge and is also friends with Avery Becker, so Ms. Cifuentes has lots of insight towards the relationship between Coach Brackman and Ms. Becker.
All right, I'll overrule the objection. The witness can answer the question.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Do you know why Ms. Becker would vandalize Coach Brackman's car?
I would like to say that it was before.
Well, so I'm going to find that that's a yes or no question. Do you know, yes or no?
Oh my God, my bad. Yes, I do.
Okay, next question.
Was that the first time you had seen tension between Coach Brackman and Avery?
Absolutely not.
Oh, and what was different about this time?
I will say it was more of those situations which, I mean, you could say was like the last straw for Avery, you know. After all of the bickering, she had finally had enough.
I see. What were the consequences of Avery's wrongdoing?
She got kicked off the mock trial team.
And did you try and help her to get back on the mock trial team?
Yes, I did.
Did she get back on the mock trial team?
No, she did not.
And what was Avery's response to that?
She went and vandalized. She sent me a text message, saying that she was gonna go trash his house.
Your Honor, these text messages have been marked as Exhibit 14. Permission to share my screen and present what has been marked as Exhibit 14.
You can share the exhibit with the witness.
Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
These are the text messages between me and Avery.
Your Honor, I would like to move Exhibit 14 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
With no objection, 14 is admitted.
Can you please read what paragraph 6 says?
Let me count that down a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As in 6 on my side, which would start with, I guess I could try.
Oh, I'm sorry, the paragraph after that.
Oh, gotcha. Quote, well, if he's still upset about his car, then he's going to be really upset when he sees what I do to his house, end quote.
I see. And
we have a timekeeper saying that there is time. I need a point of order if this were a business meeting. Is the amount of time of 25 minutes for direct, is that for all direct examinations? Yes. I'm going to find that by me swearing in witnesses and the possibility that the clock started at different time, I'm going to permit a bit more time, and then we're going to conclude. So prosecution, start wrapping up.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Did Avery seem angry?
Yes.
So
Given the text message.
yes. And so is it plausible to say, knowing that you were best friends with him, that he would go and vandalize Coach Brackman's house?
Absolutely. He vandalized his car. Why wouldn't he vandalize his house?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May I begin?
Please do. And if you're able to get a little closer to your microphone, counsel, I think we can hear you a little better.
Okay, Your Honor.
Perfect.
All right. You were on the mock trial team with Avery Becker?
Yes.
And you claim that you have always been really good friends?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yet you are here testifying for the prosecution.
Yes.
Did you view yourselves as equally skilled team members?
May you repeat the question, please?
You viewed yourselves as equally skilled team members?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. How is her skill level and mock trial relevant to this case?
Well, the witness did testify earlier about whether or not she got awards for doing nothing, so I'll permit it. Overruled.
Sir, could you repeat the question one more time?
Yes. You viewed yourselves as equally skilled team members?
I would say Avery is a little bit more skilled than I am.
But you took your role in the mock trial team much more seriously, correct?
Absolutely.
A lot of people couldn't stand Avery, is that true?
I don't recall that, no.
So people could stand Avery?
I would say so. The only problem with Avery was her lack of commitment, but other than that, you know, she was a cool person.
So did this cause any stress amongst the team with her lack of preparation and commitment?
I think we were all a little bit annoyed, but Mr. Brackman was the one who, you know, was the most upset with her.
So would Mr. Brackman put up with Avery's behavior?
I mean, they would. Could you rephrase that question?
Yes. So with Avery's lack of commitment, was Brackman willing to put up with this lack of commitment and this lack of preparation?
I mean, what else could he? Well, what else could he do other than talk to her about the situation, which is what he did constantly.
Okay. Did it irk you that Avery could come up with things on the fly and then just be able to do as good as anyone else?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. What is the relevance of her emotions towards Avery's skill level in mock trial have to do with?
Defense counsel?
It was to share how
I'll overrule the objection as it goes towards possible bias. Counsel, you can re-ask the question if you need to.
Did it irk you that Avery could come up with things on the fly during an examination?
I would say it was a skill she was required to do during mock trial.
Did you think that Avery won her awards, but did you not think Avery won any awards based on any real talent?
Oh, she had talent. She definitely did.
Let me rephrase that. Did she win any on any real good lawyering?
Yes.
After Avery was removed from the A team, were you upset that she was let back on afterwards?
I do not recall.
So you don't recall that she was demoted to B team after the regional tournament?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. What is the relevance of Avery's position on the mock trial team have to do with this case?
Overruled. I find it relevant. Answer the question, please.
I was aware that she got demoted, but I don't think I would recall my feelings during that specific time.
So were you upset that she had won Best Attorney Award and Best Closing Argument Award at this tournament?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. With the other team members, was it a slap in the face that Avery had won the awards?
I don't think I could speak on behalf of the other team members.
You thought that did you believe that Brackman should have pressed criminal charges against Avery?
I think justice should be due where it's owed. Or, yeah, I do think he should have.
Because Avery eventually got kicked off the team, your team was likely to forfeit the state tournament. Is this correct?
I actually don't recall since that was about a year ago.
Was your position in the state tournament quite poor? Your team's position?
I don't recall that either.
If Avery was therefore kicked off the team, you would get a larger role. Is this true?
I mean, I guess I suppose I would.
So were you excited about this?
I mean, I was too busy feeling bad for Avery. I mean, she was my friend.
But you were always so competitive with her, right?
I mean, good sportsmanship, right?
You told Detective Markowitz that you had sent text messages? That Avery had sent text messages to you, sorry?
Yes, she did.
But when you went to meet with the detective, you never brought your phone?
I left it at home, and I remember telling the detective the situation that it was charging, and they said it was okay to just send in screenshots.
So in fact, you never provided your phone to the police so they could verify that these text messages were received?
Not physically, but I did send in screenshots, which they approved at the moment.
So did you ever give them your phone at any point?
No, they did not, because they approved just sending them in.
Where is your phone now?
Relevance. Objection, relevance.
Overruled on that objection.
I have a plan where basically in order to get a new phone, you just trade in the old phone, and therefore I don't actually have that phone at the moment.
Okay. And you do know that an investigator on behalf of Avery had come to talk to you?
Investigator on behalf, yes. Accusing me.
Go on.
Accusing me of forging the screenshots.
So
one
you
of the
are
timekeepers has declared time. I'm going to do the same thing for defense as I did with prosecution. Defense counsel, I'll have you start wrapping up, all right?
Yes, Your Honor. So you are aware that you're being accused of faking text messages?
Yes, which is outrageous.
All right. So do you know Blair Rowlands then?
Well, I've talked to him briefly in the hallway, just saying,
So
"Hey,
so
what's
you
up?"
do know Blair Rowlands.
Of him, not about. No, I don't know him, but I know about him.
Are you aware that Coach Brackman was unable to successfully defend Rowlands' father, and as a result, Rowlands' father went to jail?
That'll be the last question. You may answer it.
Yes, I am aware.
No further questions,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
Thank you, counsel, for that. That would conclude the examination of this witness. And with that, prosecution, do you have any more witnesses, or does that conclude your case in chief?
That concludes our case in chief.
Very good. Thank you. And defense, do you have any witnesses you would like to call? And if so, who would be your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. We would like to call Blake Van Owen to the stand.
Here's what I'm going to do. It's a little different than when we're all in person and we have timekeepers sitting right next to one another, starting their clocks at the same time. I'm going to swear in the witnesses, and then once I'm done with that, the clocks are going to start, and I'm going to assist with the clock. And so I think that'll help us get a bit more consistent. I'm not faulting the timekeepers. Let's blame me because I'm swearing in witnesses, and I don't think that always happens in the mock trial. All right. Defense witness, I'll have you raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, subject to penalty of law, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please say your full name and spell your last name, and timekeepers may begin timing right now.
My name is Professor Blake Van Owen, that's spelled O-W-E-N.
All right. Before we get started, there is a chat. One of the timekeepers was pulled away due to family emergency. We do have one timekeeper, and I'm going to assist with that. So I wanted to acknowledge that, and that's fine with the understanding there's an emergency. Defense counsel, sorry for the... Yes? Who's speaking?
I've taken over for the timekeeper for this round.
Okay, so we still have two timekeepers. Thank you for that. Defense counsel, sorry for the interruption. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, Professor Blake Van Owen. Could you please state your full name for the record?
I'm Professor Blake Van Owen, that's spelled O-W-E-N.
What is your education?
I've obtained a master's degree in criminal justice from the Ashford University online program.
And what is your employment history?
I started my career with the Aurora Police Department, then became a school resource officer, and then I worked as a private investigator and started teaching courses on police procedures as an adjunct faculty member at Community College of the Rockies.
And what work are you currently doing?
The past 5 years now, I've been teaching a course at CU Denver on police practices and social justice, and I avail myself regularly as an expert courtroom witness in the areas of police practices, crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and general police investigation tactics.
Have you been accepted as a defense expert in any courts?
Yes, I've been accepted as a defense expert in the U.S. District Court for the districts of Colorado, Kansas, and Arizona, as well as state courts in Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, and New Mexico.
And are you being paid for your testimony today as an expert?
I am.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to have Blake Van Owen designated as an expert in the fields of police practices, crime scene reconstruction, and cell tower analysis pursuant to Rule 702.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
With no objection, the witness is so qualified. Defense counsel, you may continue.
Now, moving into the current case, were you hired to investigate the death of Mackenzie Brackman?
Yes, I was.
What did you review in your investigation of the case?
I reviewed the police reports, the crime scene reconstruction conducted by Kyle Cusack, as well as the cell tower reports and the exhibits prepared by Detective Markowitz. I also conducted my own investigation in areas.
Objection, narrative.
May I
I'll overrule the objection now, but we're getting close to it. Witness, you can continue answering that question.
I also conducted my own investigation in areas that I felt were neglected by the police in this case.
What conclusions did you reach about the investigation?
Objection, speculation. The witness is being asked to speculate in this question.
May I respond?
You may.
I'm asking for this expert's opinion, and because he is an expert, he has the right to give his professional opinion.
All right. So interpreting the question as asking the witness for their expert conclusions, I'll overrule the objection, and you may give your expert conclusions.
My conclusions were that this police investigation was rushed, and when you rush, you miss things. This group missed a lot of important things.
Let's talk about the things that were missed. What is the first thing you noticed?
Just that the police came to an easy conclusion, and the problem.
Objection, unfair prejudice. I believe that the probative.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. You can finish. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I believe that the value of this witness's testimony could be clouded by a bias against the police.
Well, I'll invite you to elicit that possible bias on cross-examination, but with this objection overruled.
The police came to an easy conclusion. The problem with going for the easy, that leaves a significant doubt as to who committed this crime. The kind of doubt that should have caused the prosecutors to go back to the drawing board instead of paneling a jury.
Are there any conclusions reached by the prosecution that you do agree with?
Yes, we all agree that physical on-scene evidence points to an intruder who broke into the home of the victim, Mackenzie Brackman. However, this is where our agreement ends.
Which findings of Investigator Cusack do you disagree with?
I do not agree with Investigator Cusack's conclusion that the intruder was surprised by the victim, and that during the struggle, that the victim was stabbed with the same knife that he had retrieved from a knife block in the kitchen.
And what about this conclusion do you disagree with?
Well, it started with the crime scene itself. The scuff marks there are scuff marks on the floor of some kind near the door, but we have no idea when they were made. They could have been made years ago. And they...
Objection, vague question. That question was vague, and it seems that the answer will also be vague.
Well, I think they means the prosecution or the investigation. So I appreciate that objection for clarification. I'll overrule it, though. You may continue with the answer.
As I was saying, the scuff marks are really the only evidence of a scuffle.
And what about the knife that Investigator Cusack claims came from the knife block?
Again, looking at the details of the crime scene photos, one can tell that the murder weapon was not just another brand. It was clearly inconsistent with the style and blade dimensions of the otherwise orderly and same set of knives that were there. Cusack made the most simplistic assumption available from the observations. The murder weapon was a knife, and the knife block was missing a knife. There must have been a knife missing from the knife block. Investigations 101 do not assume.
Do you agree with Investigator Cusack's conclusions regarding how the victim was killed?
No. Cusack believes that based on the knife's position, that the intruder was in front of Brackman, and they were both struggling for possession of the knife. Based on the size of the
Objection, narrative.
Overruled.
Based on the size of the intruder, the make and model of the knife, it makes a lot more sense for the intruder to have been located behind Brackman, who is seated, so as to be able to stab the victim in a downward angle and nick his aorta.
Another important detail involving the location and attack of the murder for the prosecution was the Ring doorbell cameras. Do you agree that the victim was alerted?
Objection, argumentative question. This question requires the witness to accept the examiner's summary in their answer rather than their facts.
On that objection, I'll overrule.
Would you like me to restate the question?
Yes, that'd be nice.
Another important detail involving the location and attack of the murder for the prosecution was the Ring doorbell cameras. Do you agree that the victim was alerted to the intruder by his Ring app?
I neither agree nor disagree. We will never know if notifications for the Ring app were turned on or off because Detective Markowitz didn't bother to obtain the user account records.
Now, moving on to the cell phone tower data records. Do you believe that the information found by Detective Markowitz gives clear evidence to the conclusion that Ms. Becker was located near the victim's house during the time of the murder?
At the very most, the records show that Avery's phone connected to the tower that was covering Brackman's house. That is far from saying that Avery Becker's phone or even Avery Becker herself were near the house.
Is cell tower data like GPS information?
No, it's not remotely like that. Cell tower data is just not very accurate.
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
Defense, you want to respond to that?
In cell phone data recovery, or has not been entered as one.
My response is that he has had experience with cell tower analysis and just general police investigation tactics, and that was stated earlier on before we designated him as an expert.
Yeah, I think he's been sufficiently qualified in that area, counsel, so I'll overrule the objection.
As I was saying, cell tower data is not GPS information. It's just not that accurate. Since we don't have the actual phone and cannot look at GPS data, we don't know where the phone, we don't actually know where the phone was. Cell phone towers can cover a wide area. It's up to 100 square miles in a rural area, perhaps 6 to 7 miles in an urban area.
What does the cell phone data tell us?
All it tells us is that at a certain time, the phone communicated with a cell tower in that area.
During your investigation, what did you learn about Avery Becker's phone?
There's evidence that Avery Becker lost the phone the day before the murder. Taylor Perkins also confirms that Ms. Becker did not have her phone on the day of the murder.
Was there anything that Detective Markowitz missed in the investigation of cell tower data?
Absolutely. The better practice would have been for the detective.
Objection, unfair prejudice.
Overruled. You may answer the question.
As I was saying, the better practice would have been for the detective to examine the numbers of all phones in the area at the time of the murder and track down any users who had a connection to the victim.
Were there any other shortcomings in the investigation?
Yes. The police managed to lose pictures of the blood drops in the hallway and the pictures of apparent cast-off marks.
Did you find that Ms. Becker had any other alibi?
Objection, leading question.
I will sustain that. Defense counsel, do you want to reword that, please?
No, I'll move on. Finally, Professor Blake Van Owen, did your investigation lead you to any other suspects with a motive to have killed Mackenzie Brackman?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Yes. Blair Rollins was another student at Colorado High School. Rollins was another suspect that I investigated.
Objection, narrative.
Yep, the question was, did you have another opinion? And then he launched into what that opinion is. And so I do think that is beyond the scope of the question. Defense counsel, why don't you ask that question again? We'll start over.
Professor Blake Van Owen, did you investigate any other leads? And if so, who was it?
Objection, compound question. That question contains two separate inquiries.
Witness, did you do more investigation as defense counsel asked you?
I did.
All right. We've done with that. Then what is it? Go ahead.
I investigated Blair Rollins, who is another student at Colorado High. He was a suspect that I investigated, but I believe the prosecution failed to look into it all.
In your opinion, Blake Van Owen, why was Rollins another possible suspect?
Well, Brackman was the reason why his dad ended up.
Objection, narrative.
Not yet. And I don't think the question calls for one. Overruled.
Well, Brackman was the reason why Blair Rollins' dad ended up in jail. Brackman was Rollins' attorney.
Objection, narrative.
Overruled.
Brackman was Jonathan Rollins' attorney in a case in the past where Jonathan ended up pleading guilty and is now in jail.
Your Honor, may I show the witness what was previously marked as Exhibit 22?
You may, yes.
I'll get you back, Brackman, if it's the last thing I do.
Professor Van Owen, can you identify this video and link?
Yes, this is an audio recording from the trial of Jonathan Rollins. This was at the end of the trial when Rollins pleaded guilty.
At this time, I move for the admission of Exhibit 22 into evidence.
Prosecution, any objection to 22 being admitted?
I would object to the relevance. How is this relevant to the case of Avery Becker?
May I respond?
Defense? Please.
This is relevant because it is giving another possible alternative witness as well as a motive for somebody else going to prove the possibility of Avery Becker not being guilty.
All right. Based on that objection, I'll overrule that objection. And you may continue, defense counsel.
Your Honor, may I have permission to publish this video and link to the jury?
No objection.
So you, okay, no objection. That exhibit is admitted and you may publish it.
Thank you. So Professor Van Owen, what does this audio recording show you?
Well,
objection, asked and answered.
Because I just showed the audio recording, I'm now just asking for this expert opinion on why this shows a possible motive.
Understanding there's a request to expound on the foundation, I'll overrule the objection and permit it.
Would you like for me to restate the question?
Yes, please.
So Professor Van Owen, what does this audio recording show you?
Well, it shows me that there was a threat made to Brackman by Rollins. And so I believe that that does in fact.
Objection, speculation. The witness is speculating.
So I think this is an expert witness. Well, let me ask defense counsel, what do you think? Do you want to respond to that?
I, again, just think that he's an expert witness, and I think that he's giving his expert opinion as to why this is a possible motive for another person. He is, after all, an expert with criminal investigation.
I agree with that. I'll overrule the objection.
As I was saying, it shows that there was a threat made toward Brackman by Rollins. And I believe that that gives a clear motive to me of why.
Objection, improper character evidence.
Overruled.
It gives a clear motive to why Blair might want to kill Brackman.
And finally, based on your investigation, do you believe Avery Becker murdered Mackenzie Brackman?
No, I do not. There are way too many holes in the prosecution's case. This was an atrocious investigation completed by incompetent investigators who allowed their assumptions to cloud their judgment.
Objection. Unfair prejudice.
Well, in other words, I think it's an ultimate conclusion of law that I will sustain the objection to. Defense counsel, do you have any other questions?
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Prosecution, cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go
Why
ahead.
do you no longer work for the Aurora Police Department?
That is correct.
Is it true that you injured a young woman of color while working at the Aurora Police Department?
I did.
And what side do you usually find yourself testifying for?
I normally find myself testifying for the defense.
And why do you find yourself testifying for the defense?
Because the prosecution uses their own personnel to testify for them. So it's the defense that hires me.
And you're getting paid to testify for the defense today?
Yes, it is my job.
What is your professional relationship with Detective?
I'm sorry, was there an objection?
Yes, I objected to relevance.
Oh, overruled.
What is your professional relationship with Detective Jordan Markowitz?
I have dealt with cases that were investigated by Detective Markowitz.
And what is your professional relationship with Kyle Kuzak?
It is the same. I've testified in cases that he has looked at.
And in your witness statement, you described Kyle Kuzak as egotistical?
Yes, he's a little bit egotistical.
Do you have any evidence to back that up?
I forgot.
You don't have evidence to back up that statement?
No.
So to confirm, you've had cases with both Kyle Kuzak and Markowitz outside of this individual case?
Yes, I have.
And finally, would it have been possible for you to obtain records to verify your assumptions about the prosecution's investigation of the cell phone towers?
It is, though that is not my job.
But you didn't get those things to back up your assumptions and claims?
I did not feel the need to.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Defense, any redirect of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
That'll conclude this witness's testimony then. And defense, who would you like to call as your next witness, if any?
We call Taylor Perkins, Your Honor.
Taylor Perkins, I'll swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, subject to penalty of law, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You.
All right. Please say your full name and spell your last name, your witness name.
Taylor Perkins, Perkins.
All right. Defense counsel, you may proceed.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Colorado High School.
Were you on the mock trial team?
Yeah, I was with my best friend Avery Becker.
How did you view Coach Brackman?
I just didn't really think he made the best decisions for the team, to be honest.
Did Coach Brackman and Avery get along?
No, Bracken was always on Avery for something.
Did the coach give Avery a hard time?
Yeah, it seemed like Coach was always giving Avery a hard time about something.
What happened during the mock trial season last year?
Well, Avery kind of showed up really unprepared to one of our practices, and Brackman totally freaked out and ended up demoting her to the B team, which was kind of crazy because Avery was definitely A team material and honestly had all the different awards to prove it.
Did you do anything when Avery was demoted to the B team?
I ended up stepping down. Really, it wasn't something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wasn't that interested in mock trial, but beyond, being able to do something with my friend.
So did Coach Brackman put Avery back on the A team?
Yes.
Did any major event happen to Avery while at the regional tournament?
Avery ended up getting both the best attorney and best closing argument awards.
After that, did things get cleared up between Brackman and Avery?
Honestly, no. Brackman ended up saying that Avery didn't deserve those awards.
What then did Avery do?
Avery got really upset, like any person would do, and did end up writing worst attorney award on Coach Brackman's car.
What happened after Avery wrote on the car?
Brackman kicked her out of mock trial.
Did Avery make any effort to get back on the team?
Tried apologizing to Coach Brackman and ended up trying to text a few of the other team members.
Why did it appear that Brackman didn't let Avery back on the team?
It just seemed like Brackman kind of had a little bit of a hurt pride because Avery really didn't feel the need to prepare because she was just so good at it. And Brackman expected a certain level of preparedness that Avery honestly did better with just improvising.
So did Avery get along with everyone else on the team then?
Pretty much except for Alex. I mean, Alex always wanted the different roles that Avery got, but Avery was better and so got the different roles.
Did the other team members help Avery get back on?
They offered to talk to Coach Brackman about what happened.
Afterwards, did Avery make any other effort to get back on the team?
Avery ended up trying to go in person to apologize to Coach Brackman, but Coach Brackman wouldn't let her actually apologize and just kicked her out of the mock trial. And we ended up going to my house after that.
What did you two do after hanging out at your house?
We went to the Fry Shack, and we actually saw some of the mock trial team members there.
When you saw the other club participants, how did they treat Avery?
They were all really sincere and were talking about how it was so unfair for Coach to let Avery go.
Did you go anywhere after the Fry Shack?
We ended up going to the mall and some of the stores.
Okay. Let's talk about Avery's phone. Are you aware that Avery had lost her phone?
Yes.
Where did Avery lose her phone?
The last place I remember it being was at the Fry Shack.
When did you become aware that her phone was missing?
Well, the next day after the Fry Shack, we usually got together to, go to school, and after trying to contact her to, make sure we're getting together, when she arrived, we realized that she didn't have her phone.
Objection, Your Honor. Narrative.
Overruled.
Besides anyone else sitting at the table, wherever you had left her phone, was there anyone else sitting there at the table besides you?
I do remember Alex was by the table.
What did you do when Avery realized that her phone, what did you and Avery do when you realized that the phone was missing?
We ended up ditching school. Nothing was really that important. So we went around trying to look for her phone. I know that I personally need my phone, so without it, it's just kind of a survival thing.
Where did you end up going during the day?
We went around to all the different stores and to the Fry Shack.
So did you try to do anything else to locate the phone?
Well, besides texting and calling, we both completely forgot about the fact that you can use like iCloud because I have an Android, and so it just never really occurred to us.
Did you see anyone you knew at the Fry Shack when you arrived there that day?
Yeah, we saw some of the mock trial members, which was really weird because they were supposed to have practice during that time.
So you were surprised to see them?
Yeah, very surprised.
At the time of Brackman's murder, were you with anyone?
I was with Avery.
Where was your phone the day of the murder?
It was on us as we went around.
Were you aware of any other potential suspects?
I was eventually made aware of Blair Rowlands.
Do you know
Objection, Your Honor. Unfair prejudice.
Defense, you want to respond to that?
I'm just simply asking what has been said in the testimony, Your Honor.
Yeah, I'm going to rule the same way I did when there was a previous objection related to a possible alternative suspect. For purposes of this hearing, I'm going to overrule the objection. I think it's a good objection, but it's overruled. Defense, you can continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Were you aware of any other potential suspects?
I was eventually made aware of Blair Rollins.
Do you know Blair Rollins?
Really just from school.
Do you know where Blair Rollins was the day of the murder?
I don't.
Did Alex and Blair know each other?
From my perspective, it seemed like they did.
So, were Alex and Blair friends?
From my perspective, it also seemed like they were friends.
Why would that be?
It really just seemed like the whole opposites attract thing, you know?
Did Brackman have any history with Blair?
I do know that Brackman was one of the lawyers on Blair's father's case that sent Blair's father to prison.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination, prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor. What is your relationship with Avery Becker?
We're best friends.
What school did you attend to around the time of the incident?
Colorado High School.
And it's my understanding that you weren't at school the day of the murder. Where were you?
We were going around trying to look for Avery's phone.
Who were you with?
Avery.
Just Avery?
Yes.
And were you on the high school mock trial team with Avery?
Yes.
And what was that like?
Could you clarify that question?
Sure.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Overruled.
Would you like me to repeat my question?
Go ahead and do that.
What was it like being on the mock trial team? Like, were there any occurrences that really stuck out to you?
Really just Brackman and Avery, you know, ended up getting upset at each other.
And how?
Something to do with my best friend.
And how often did this happen?
Every so often.
Mm-hmm. And in your affidavit, you said Avery's phone was like her third kidney. How is it possible that she could go a whole day and the rest of the night without it, and then conveniently realize that it was lost the day of the murder?
Well, you know, Avery was really upset. I mean, everything that had happened, you know, being kicked off the team, not being able to apologize or make it right. I can only imagine what was going through her head at the time. Just being so upset.
My internet kind of, but I'll move on. What do you think happened to Avery's phone?
I believe that it could have been taken by someone, probably Alex.
Why? Why do you think that Alex might have took his phone?
Alex was always pretty jealous of the roles that Avery got. I mean, Alex wanted the different roles that Avery got, and also, you know, they were by the table and were the only one that really didn't seem that sincere about what was happening.
Is it true Avery texted Alex to get back on the mock trial team?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Did Avery text Alex to get back for help to get back on the mock trial team?
I do not know if Avery texted Alex.
Okay, well, I direct your attention to Exhibit 14, which has been entered into evidence. Your Honor, permission to share my screen. I'm sorry, you cut out. Oh, you're on mute.
My apologies again. Which exhibit number or letter are you wanting to show the witness?
14.
Yes, you may.
I can't hear you if you're asking a question.
Oh, do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes.
Can you read what it says, please?
which part would you like me to read?
I'd like you to read the first 3 paragraphs.
Okay. The all of them, or just the green or the...
All of them. Thank you.
Hey, Alex, it's Avery. Hey, what's up? I'm sure you're aware that I got kicked off the team. I'm pretty desperate to get back on. Is there any way you'd be willing to talk to Coach Brackman about having me back?
Would you mind reading on, please?
I don't know. Coach is still pretty upset with you. Come on, please. It's really important to me. I guess I could try, but after the car situation, I doubt anyone could change his mind. Well, if he's still upset about his car, then he's going to be really upset about when he sees what I do to his house. What are you going to do to his house? I'm going to wait until he's at work, then break in and trash it.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect by defense?
No, Your Honor.
That would conclude the testimony of this witness. Defense, do you have any other witnesses?
Yes. We'd like to call Avery Becker to the stand.
All right. And would this be the third witness then, defense?
Yes, it would.
All right. Avery Becker, I'll have you raise your right hand and I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm, subject to penalty of law, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Please say your full name and spell your last name.
Avery Becker. Becker is spelled Becker.
Thank you. Defense counsel, you may proceed with this witness.
Miss Becker, why are you here today?
I'm here to defend myself against being wrongly accused of the murder of Coach Brackman.
How well did you know Mackenzie Becker?
I would say I knew him fairly well. He was my mock trial coach at Colorado High School.
Are you still in high school?
No, I graduated last spring.
How many years were you on the Colorado High School mock trial team?
Lucky enough, I was on the mock trial team all 4 years of high school from freshman to senior.
Did you always get along with Coach Brackman?
Unfortunately not. He always thought I needed to work harder, but I was really good at just doing it on the fly. Mock trial came naturally to me. I even won Best Attorney Award at regionals, which I was really proud of. I think Coach Brackman didn't like me because he might not have been as good in court as I was.
Did you have friends on the mock trial team?
Yeah, Taylor Perkins and I were best friends, and I convinced her to join mock trial too.
Were you friends with Alex Cifuentes?
Alex and we haven't really ever gotten along. I don't know why Alex pretends that we are friends, but he always wanted to be the big star, and to do that, he needed me to be off the team.
Did your high school have more than one mock trial team?
Yeah, there were 2 teams, and I was on the A team.
Did there ever come a point when you weren't on the A team anymore?
Yes.
When did that happen?
I want to say like a month before regionals. Coach Brackman started in again about my lack of preparation before coming to practice. And before I could respond, he bumped me down to B team.
Were you unhappy about that?
Of course I was. I was a senior and it just wasn't fair. I have a natural talent at mock and I could do a better job than my teammates without the same level of preparation.
Did you try to convince him to let you back on the A team?
Absolutely. I tried everything, but he refused to put me back on the A team.
Did you ever get back on the A team? I'm sorry, Miss
The
Becker.
witness, I'm unable to hear you. Witness, try talking.
Still can't hear you. Sorry, Avery.
Nope, unable to hear you. Are you able to hear us? You didn't do what I do and mute yourself, did you? Nope.
Would it be a pain to leave the Zoom and get back in really quick?
If we don't have any other options, let's give it a shot. Just the witness.
Are we making sure that the time is paused while this is happening?
Let's go ahead and pause the time. Thank you. Good question. I've let the witness back in.
Okay, does that work?
Yes, it did.
Yes.
All right, we figured it
Let's
out.
start the time. Let's start the time again. And defense counsel, ask your last question again, please.
Did you ever get back on the A team?
Yes, I did. My best friend Taylor Perkins offered to quit so that Coach Brackman would put me back on the A team. She didn't really care about mock trial as much as I did, so she left.
Did you receive any awards at regionals?
Yeah, I won the best attorney award, and I was also named the best closer.
Did Brackman congratulate you on your awards?
No, he started in on how I should have followed his script, and in front of everyone, he said that I didn't deserve the best attorney award, and my closings were just lucky, and I'm not going to do well at state.
How did this make you feel?
I was really, really angry. I called him the worst coach in the state, and then I did something I regret.
What did you do?
So before Coach chewed me out, I had been about to outline the good and bad things at regionals on the whiteboard. And when I stormed out, I still had the marker on my hand, and I wrote on his car Worst Attorney Award, but I thought it was a dry erase marker, and it turned out to be permanent.
Then what happened?
So Coach came out to talk to me, and when he realized what I did to his car, he just exploded. He yelled, he screamed, and then he ended up cutting me from the team.
Did you try to apologize to Coach Brackman?
I did. The next day, I went to his office to apologize, and he wouldn't talk to me. I then sent him a text and offered to get a job to get his car repainted. He never responded. He just ignored me.
Were you upset enough to kill Coach Brackman?
Of course not. I felt so bad about what already happened. I couldn't do anything else to hurt him.
Do you regret what you did to his car?
Yeah, I'm really, really ashamed for messing up his car. I thought it was a dry erase marker, and after that, I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Where were you on March 6th, the day Coach Brackman died?
I was with Taylor Perkins, my best friend, the entire day.
What were you doing?
That morning of March 6th, I realized that my phone was missing, so we ended up skipping school to go find it.
When is the last time you remember having your phone?
I remember having my phone on March 5th at the Fry Shack when we ran into a bunch of the mockers from CHS, including Alex Cifuentes. We also had gone to the mall, so on the 6th, we went to the mall and looked all over and then went back to the Fry Shack.
Did you find it?
No, unfortunately, my phone was nowhere to be found. We kept using Taylor's phone to try and call my phone. The phone immediately went to voicemail, so we figured it was either dead or stolen. Looking back, I think that Alex took my phone when we were at the Fry Shack.
Are you aware that Alex claims that you sent him a text message asking you to help him get back on the team?
Yeah.
Did you send that text message?
No, I didn't. Alex would be the absolute last person I would ask for help on anything. He would not have helped me. He didn't even want me back on the team.
Did you tell Alex that you were going to Coach Brackman's house to trash it?
No, I never sent any text to Alex.
Were you near Coach Brackman's house on the day of the murder?
No. Taylor and I were at the mall, then at the Fry Shack, and I also don't know where he lives.
Do you think you were set up?
Yes.
Did you know anyone else who didn't like Coach Brackman?
Yeah, actually, Blair Rollins, I think, didn't like him because Coach Brackman represented Blair's dad and lost the case, and unfortunately, Blair's dad went to jail.
Are you aware of whether Alex and Blair were friends?
Yes, they are.
Did you watch the ring videos?
Yes.
Can you identify the person in the videos?
I believe that it kind of looks like Blair Rollins.
Is Blair Rollins a witness in this case?
No, Blair Rollins has disappeared Something must have gone really wrong when she went to Brackman's to trash it.
I have one final question, Miss Becker. Did you murder Mackenzie Brackman?
No, I did not.
There will be no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Cross-examination from the prosecution?
Yes. Hello, Ms. Becker. Avery, is it true that you vandalized Mr. Brackman's car?
Yes, I did, and that is something that I absolutely regretted. As I said, I was at the whiteboard getting ready to outline, and I was kind of caught up in the heat of the moment.
Do you think this was more of sadness or anger that led you to do it?
I think it was an equal amount of both. I was upset, but I was kind of frustrated.
Okay. Now, after that altercation, and after Mr. Brackman officially kicked you off the team, what did you do?
I tried to apologize to him.
And did you get a response?
No, he didn't want to see me, but so I ended up sending him a text.
Okay. So is it true that you said, and I quote, "I will get back at him if it was the last thing I do"?
I did end up saying that to my mom, but that is just a misunderstanding of what it actually meant.
Well, this was directed towards your now deceased mock trial coach, Mackenzie Brackman, correct?
Yes, but it wasn't really
Objection.
meant.
That question has already been asked and answered.
I'll overrule the objection.
Okay. Would you like me to repeat it, the question?
What I know the question, but I didn't mean it in a negative way towards my coach at all.
Okay. Now, can you tell me how you went all the way until the next morning until you realized your phone was missing?
I was just kind of busy with family stuff. My mom didn't really allow me to have my phone, so I didn't really think about it once I got home. So.
Okay. Can you explain to me why your phone was at one point detected near Mr. Brackman's house, from the path that leads to your house?
I don't really know why.
This question calls for speculation.
So the question is, Ms. Buckley, do you know what? Would you repeat the question?
Can you explain to me why your phone was at one point detected near Mr. Brackman's house from the path that leads to your house?
Defense, do you maintain that objection?
Yes, I do.
All right, I'll overrule the objection. The witness shall answer the question.
I didn't really know where my phone was over there. As I said earlier and in my witness statement, that I did not have my phone, and I have an alibi that is secured by my good friend Taylor Perkins.
Okay. Can you tell me why you weren't at school March 6th, the day of the murder?
I wasn't at school the day of the murder because, as I have said earlier, I was out looking for my phone.
Okay. Do you believe that are you aware of the text with Alex Fuentes?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And do you believe that they were faked?
Of course they were fake. I didn't
This
send
question
them.
has already been answered in the direct.
But not on the cross-examination, and this attorney gets to ask even just the exact same question that you may have asked. So overruled. Answer the question if you're able to, or ask that it be repeated, please, witness.
Ms. Buckley, will you please repeat the question?
Yes. Are you aware of the text messages with Alex Fuentes and?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you believe that they were faked?
I know they were fake because I didn't send them.
Okay. So you wouldn't go to Alex for anything, correct?
No, we weren't even friends. He just pretended we were.
Okay. And do you believe that Brackman is a good coach or was a good coach?
He was a good coach. He was always trying to help our team grow, but him and I we always seem to butt heads. We just really disagreed on everything. And in your life, you will meet people like that.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any redirect by defense counsel?
There will not be a real redirect.
No redirect? That would then conclude the testimony of this witness. Defense, I think those are all of your witnesses. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. We're ready then for closing arguments, and we'll begin with the prosecution's closing argument.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you may proceed now.
Ladies and gentlemen, counsel and the jury, and Your Honor, there's a lot that was learned today, and we, the prosecution, have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that Mr. Becker is guilty of murder in the first degree. Our expert in cell phone forensic data recovery, who had also had 19 years of homicide detective experience, has shown us lots of different exhibits. These exhibits help us highlight the scene and give a description of what the murderer's figure looked like. Detective Markowitz was able to get videos from Mr. Brackman's phone, and those came from the Ring cameras captured on the day of the murder. Exhibits 10 through 13, or the Ring videos, showed someone with the same figure as Miss Becker. Around the same time as the murder, Miss Becker's phone was receiving messages. These messages were pinged off of a cell tower, and the cell tower shows a clear path from Mrs. Becker's house to Mr. Brackman's house, as seen in Exhibit 15. And again, I remind Your Honor and the jury that this was around the time of the murder. What Officer Kuzak, who is an expert in CSR work and has lots of experience in home invasion and burglaries, has proven is that this was a burglary gone wrong. Alex Cifuentes, who is very close to Avery Becker, revealed to us that Miss Becker had already planned to vandalize Brackman's house, as seen in Exhibit 14. Miss Cifuentes has shown us screenshots of the text between the two, and Miss Becker said, and I...
Oh. Counsel, your audio cut out. Timekeepers, I'm going to invite you to stop timing. Hold on. We're unable to hear. I think we're just having... Counsel, just for about the last 30 seconds, you just froze. And so if you'd go back just a little bit, I invited the timekeepers to stop. Would you just go back just a little bit and timekeepers can start up again, please?
Miss Becker said, and I quote, well, if he's upset about what I did to his car, well, then he's really going to be upset what he sees what I do to his house. These texts were sent the day before the murder. It was also proven that Miss Becker was not at school the day of the murder. We should continue to focus on the facts and what has been proven in court. We ask that the court finds in favor of the prosecution. Mackenzie Brackman deserves justice. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And defense, closing argument? You may present that to the jury now.
Atrocious, assumed, accused. Your Honor, members of the jury, today we, the defense, have established that Avery Becker is in fact innocent of the charges that the prosecution brought against her. She is not guilty of burglarizing the home of the victim, and she is certainly not guilty of murdering her coach, Mackenzie Brackman. Atrocious. Today, you have heard testimony about the atrocious investigation conducted by the prosecution that was rushed and incomplete. Expert witness Blake Van Owen explained all of the deficiencies in the investigation, including the police's failure to fully investigate the alternative suspects, to verify the so-called text messages that may have been fabricated by Alex Cifuentes, to recognize the deficiencies and limitations of their cell phone location evidence and their failure to investigate Avery Becker's alibi and her missing cell phone. All we got today from the prosecution was a load of evidence that at best described how the victim was murdered, but completely lacked any proof as to who was responsible for the murder. The prosecution introduced photos of a crime scene that contained no proof that Avery Becker was at the victim's house in 2020. And they found no DNA or fingerprints evidence to establish that she was there. Assumed. The police made a number of erroneous assumptions in this case, which were described by the prosecution's own witnesses. You have heard the prosecution say that Avery Becker murdered Mackenzie Brackman, yet their main evidence came from screenshots of a text conversation that was never verified and allegations that Miss Becker and her mock trial coach didn't always get along. Detective Markowitz admitted that he relied on the photographs of screenshots provided by Alex Fuentes, but never verified them. Their own crime scene investigator, Kyle Kuzak, testified that no DNA or fingerprints belonging to my client were found at the crime scene and that they identified 2 other suspects, but failed to fully investigate them. Kyle Kuzak could only tell you how Coach Brackman was murdered, but had no evidence to prove who did it or why the crime was committed. The prosecution also relied on testimony of Alex Fuentes, a high school student who always wanted the role that Avery Becker had on the mock trial team and who never actually provided his own phone to the police, but merely provided screenshot photographs of an alleged text conversation that could have easily been doctored. You heard from Professor Blake Van Owen, who pointed out holes in the prosecution's misplaced assumptions and established a more likely suspect in this case, named Blair Rollins, another Colorado high school student who had a motive to want to harm Mackenzie Brackman. After all, Blair Rollins' father is serving a jail sentence because Mackenzie Brackman lost his criminal case and has been missing since the time of the murder. You also heard from Miss Becker's best friend, Taylor Perkins, who verified Avery Becker's alibi on the day of the murder, and who told you that even though Avery Becker and the victim had their disagreements, that Avery Becker would never have murdered her coach. Finally, you heard from the defendant herself, who acknowledged her past disagreements with Coach Brackman with embarrassment and sorrow for her behavior. Avery Becker accepted responsibility for her childish behavior and her past mistakes. She testified about how her missing cell phone and her alibi at the time of the murder. Accused. You are all well aware that my client has been wrongfully accused of burglarizing the home of her coach and of murdering him in his home. Avery Becker is no murderer. She was a frustrated and stressed out teen who made a stupid mistake of drawing on her coach's car. She did not have enough hate in her heart to kill someone, especially her own coach. Today, you were provided with an alibi, an alternative suspect, and an apology from Miss Becker for her past behavior. I am certain that once you look at the facts and consider all of the evidence in this case, that you will find Avery Becker not guilty of the crimes that she has been charged with. Thank you.
Thank you, defense. Does the prosecution wish to make a rebuttal argument? No obligation, but I don't want to ignore that if you do.
No, Your Honor.
No? All right. That'll conclude the presentation of the evidence and closing argument. And we'll focus our attention on our super petite jury of 2. We're going to give Mr. Steiner and Mr. Kolkmeyer an opportunity to complete their score sheets. I'm going to invite everyone to remain on